गुड इवनिंग एंड वेलकम टू गना शॉट। गना शॉट में आप सबका स्वागत है। Today we're going to talk about narratives and conflict. Every conflict starts with the narrative, ends with the narrative, and is the prologue of that is also a narrative which leads to the next narrative and the next conflict. You see that in the context of our own conflicts. Look at the Kashmir conflict. I'll call it a conflict because that's what we've been doing. We've been fighting a proxy war against Pakistan. See the Pakistani narratives and how we have been at a disadvantage for lack of a narrative. Uh, Same thing goes for many other things. You look at what's happening in the West Asia, right? The narratives of uh, all the radical Islamist groups, whether how they have built up their narrative, how Hezbollah has built up its narrative, right? Or for that matter, the Ukraine war, or the ace of the pack, China. What do they go about doing before they? In fact, today I was reading an article by a Chinese in Chinese, a Chinaman in Chinese, and he's building up already narratives and a legal framework to go across Taiwan. And what that is, we will discuss later. But today, to discuss all this, I have with me General DB Pandey. He's back on our channel once again. But before I hand over the floor to him, I must tell you there's a book about him and his leadership written by Colonel Ajay Raina, right? And he's the subject of that book. He's also the object of that book. And what he has done in leadership is something I think remarkable. And I'm glad that I knew him at a time when he was just a lieutenant colonel commanding his unit, and I was one of those guys who was there when he became a colonel. Our friendship goes back that far back, and to see him being the subject of a book to me is a matter of pride and immense satisfaction. Right. So I'd like the leader in General Pandey to come up and give his thoughts about narratives and conflict. General Pandey, all yours.
Thank you, sir. Sir, if we have some time, maybe in the last, I'll just maybe talk a little bit about that book and how it came about. I'll just take
Yeah.
a half a minute, but right now let's focus on the topic because it's a valuable time, I think. And it's a very, very important topic, sir. Let me start with a disclaimer that firstly, I'm not an academic. I'm also not an expert in this matter called narratives, but I'm surely a practitioner. And I can assure you, there are places where I have succeeded, but largely I've also failed miserably in shaping of narrative. I belong to a regiment called Sikhalai, in which if you don't know how to shape narrative, the regiment will drive you rather than you driving them as a leader. So I have
Well,
learned
that's
this
the
art very
narrative.
young.
No, Sekula has a narrative of its own, to be very honest.
Yeah,
It's a unique
so
narrative of the
correct.
Indian Army. Yeah.
So awesome troops, awesome people, but people who is very, very straightforward. But yet, I think there is a. And so I learned my practice. I practiced my skills there with the men, and therefore I was able to play this game later on in other. And I'll talk very briefly about whatever. But I just want to talk about what is narratives. And narratives are everything which you can do without actually firing a shot and ensure that your competitor, your friend, your parents, your colleagues, your subordinates, anybody who's there, whose mind can be shaped to believe in what you're doing, what you're saying is right, without making much effort, is what I feel narrative. And the best form to win a war or a conflict is by actually spending very little fraction of your defense budget, by putting some money in narrative. And unfortunately, in the strategic environment of our country, we don't have a concept of narrative shipping. World has always played, sir, this game of narrative. We in our country, in our subcontinent, in our culture, also in the civilization, we have practiced narrative shaping for quite some time. For example, Rama is a good person. He needs to be followed. On the other side, Ravana also was a good person, but he took wrong steps and therefore he became a bad. There are epics There are stories, there are real life situations in which narratives have been shaped to ensure that people follow the path what society wants them to follow. But sir, for last 200 years, we have been at the receiving end of the narrative shaping. And it was very clear for the reasons for actually drying up our resources in terms of human resource and our assets and resources in our country, which needed to be required to be taken out to sustain a Western industrialization by the Britishers, had to be shaped and we had to be broken up. So, what is, I'll just briefly, and I've been talking very often in my talks to IIT and others, we have been told that you are an Indian, you are brown, you are snake charmers, we have got dirty habits, we don't look nice, we don't look white, we don't look pretty, our culture is bad, our religion is worse. In We have started believing it. Our own children don't want to follow our path. They want to follow a path of the Western civilization, Western culture. While the Chinese and Japanese have been able to control this narrative, they're also finding it very difficult. I was just recently in Japan. They're converting very fast into a westernized society, leaving their own culture, and they've started wearing only blacks and grays, and the children are talking a different language. That is narrative. The narrative of a free world draws somewhere else, and they have been able to succeed. Actually, we don't believe in our own culture and civilization. We aren't any more proud. And there's a quote which I often quote: "Those who forget the roots are consigned to be rootless forever." And that is the situation of our country because possibly we are not very good at it. Who have practiced and mastered the art of narrative shaping? In the recent time, the non-state actors. You imagine, sir, Al Qaeda, without any formal structure, formal leadership, formal territorial presence, formal government structure, their space, their control, their leverages are only expanding without much funds coming out. And it is being done only through online, on digital platform. They're using technology to do it and some degree of outreach in some matter of another. Look at ISIS. ISIS was lost, regained its ground, has got territorial expansion. There are spaces in Africa where it's expanding. The controls and levers are expanding. It is totally an antithesis for the Western society, modern society, a democratic society, which is the free world, but yet there is an expansion taking place. You imagine, sir, that about a decade back, or about when I wrote a paper on ISIS during my NDC days, that time ISIS was just about coming out, and I had warned of the threats and what action we need to take. The Western society girls, aged from 14 to 18 to 20 to 25, knowing fully well where they are going, believed in it. And they were lured and they fought through parents, subverted everything. They were able to reach out to become slaves in Raqqa city and those places. And those stories abound and people know of it, talk of it. They have been documented and all. That is what is narrative. That you train the mind of an educated person living in a free world to defy the entire logic and move out to a society which is not even worse than 7th century society, to live in that environment, to be believer of al-Baghdadi. You imagine that's the mindset. The shaping of mind is today in UK when the grooming gangs, what they do, basically rape a woman, which is girl who is less than 14 years, has been acceptable norm in that society. Is the narrative shaping which happens when they release 40 men of raping somebody, and they say because their culture allows it and they were unaware of a culture, is the mind shaping which happens from within. And this is possibly the highest form of mind shaping, is so that when you train a man's mind to kill himself by taking others' life, while the people who are shaping the mind are sitting in constant AC and leadership is sitting elsewhere and bloating, they are becoming fatter and fatter. You look at Hafiz Saeed and this whole brutish
Yeah,
gang.
they're very obese, overweight fellows.
मोटे मोटे हो रखे हैं, but sir, every man is killing for himself for these jokers. That's the ultimate form of narrative shaping. Is success So narrative shaping is identified by identifying the correct target population, by fear and lure. Fear can be of God, lure can be of heaven. It is repetitive. So even I, who has studied, who has been into army, I can start growing to hate my army. If a narrative which is repetitive, that you're not looked after, there's a whole issue, तुम्हारे को तो कोई पूछता नहीं है, and they will cite selective example, and suddenly I can also turn against my own organization. It needs to be repetitive. A lie can become a truth. I'll give an example of Kashmir, sir. When a middle-aged man who's about 40, 45 offers his wife and his daughters and his sister living in the home to terrorists who are holding weapon and accepting it because the OGWs have told him this is in the way, these people are freedom fighters, they have come to fight your war, खाना तो खिलाना है but इनकी जवानी है उसको भी गरम को रखना है, and if they sleep with a woman in your house, it's all right. That when he does, and I have met these people, and he's convinced by his positivity of action that he's doing for a cause, that is an ultimate form of narrative shaping. You look at the mind. Somebody may say it is radicalized. It is not. He believes in it. When a OGW is killed because his wife was sleeping, this thing. When his daughter was looked at by the same terrorist, that wife and daughter will also sleep with me, and he slightly refused and he was killed. The village did not pick up the body because it was made to believe that he has done something wrong against the cause. You imagine that's the ultimate shaping of mind. It's not something you can say by fear, but definitely the opium of this is at times extremism, radicalization of ideologies. It can be in form of, most potent is, of course, the opium is religion. So this is the best form of narrative which I have seen. The other I want to give an example is technology demonstrator. The Chinese flew to I think JF's recent time smart stealth war fighters and stuff like the aircrafts, and the social media was abuzz by India betas, DRDO. I agree the DRDOs aren't good, but when you talk in that public forum, you're telling the entire country that Chinese are 8 feet tall. They don't have troubles. Everything is hunky-dory and you are going to be subsumed. It just requires little bit of intelligence, some amount of money. And why do you think that the Chinese, Americans, people like Hindenburg, Bill Gates pay enough money to keep our own people on their payroll to write against the Indian state, Indian people, Indian civilization, Indian armed forces, how backward we are and how powerful everybody else is, so that you are broken well before you're launched. A talk of this nature suddenly breaks down your own indigenization campaign, whatever it may be, going slow, sluggish, kuch bhi ho raha ho. But suddenly, I will talk of another great concept. And, I was director in Infinity 2. You may remember, sir, there's a concept called F-INSAS, the future Indian soldier, and that had helmet mounted screen, I'm talking about 20 years back. And that was a whole thing. I used to only ask a question in this thing, that this is being sold to you by Israelis, for example, how many Israeli soldiers are you seeing them watching wearing this? And we in infantry wanted everybody, man jack, to have that entire concept to fight a war in that. And if you don't have it, then you're not going to fight. But you look at the Israelis, when you see the normal picture of the Israeli soldier, he is wearing just a dangri and a weapon and maybe this thing. Only the specialized soldiers have the better equipment, and there are gray areas. Eventually, what happens is when you talk pain, you only defeat yourself by believing that everything outside is very hunky-dory and your stuff is not good enough. So while we need to look at our stuff, but this narrative shaping, and they will always, Hindenburg. Why does the Hindenburg report comes absolutely just before an election? It's to shape the mind. It is also narrative. There's all flawed. There are very frivolous, one little something which will be there and a whole package will come out and you will find the stock exchange falling and elections being won or lost. Why does Elon Musk, why does media has become so important that people want to buy and control it? Why do people say that the Russians, in fact, in the last elections, it is believed that about 20 to 25 people from a particular party from UK were involved in ensuring that they shape the mind so that the Trump doesn't come back. You imagine the power of narrative shaping is that the people who understands most today are the politicians, and the businessmen always understood, right? So the business, when the corporate world came out with taglines like iodine namak, right? We did not, country did not require iodine because we had adequate. It was just introduced as a scientific term and it became a tagline. Coke, Coke and Pepsi, we know how damaging it is for our bones.
Health.
But every mother gives her child Pepsi and Coke with a great amount of pride. While people who are arrived, who have evolved, will avoid drinking it. But the larger population of our country thrives because Virat Kohli or somebody, I don't know, all these film stars, so they carry that thing and they drink. The, the business understands this. The politicians use tagline for narrative shaping. अब की बार मोदी सरकार, डबल इंजन सरकार बनेगा, क्या है, बटेंगे कटेंगे. और पहले in the old time they should talk of गरीबी हटाओ, abhiyan. Then they'll talk of what do you call Jai Jawan, Jai Kisan. So that, it is all, they understand these taglines matter. Harit Kranti, Aapka Sevak. Those words are shaping a narrative. Somebody will come out with a broomstick so that people associate with political parties. These people understand. Why doesn't Indian strategic community? Unfortunately, we are paid community, which doesn't have to survive the next election or the next business competition, has possibly failed to understand. And that is where it worries me. I'll give only one example, sir, of my success. There's a thing called Tiranga revolution, which he started. Basically Sanjay Vishwas Rao and Rupesh Mehta, they were two people who were main people behind. But we started for nearly 30 years, 32 years, in Lal Chowk, we only saw the different color stuff, right? It only required a little bit of imagination to tell the people that Tiranga is also yours. It was started as inorganic. It took some degree of engagement, presence of Tiranga all over the place, in prominent places, and the youth started acknowledging that Tiranga is ours. National symbols in Kashmir were missing. There was a statement which was given by two very prominent politicians that 370 के बाद में जब ये झंडा जम्मू कश्मीर का हट जाएगा तो कंधा तिरंगा उठाने वाला नहीं मिलेगा. And you know what has happened? Lal Chowk, events after events, Tiranga comes out and people proudly display Tiranga as of now. It requires a batting from front foot. Unfortunately, in our organization, we are very, very scared of using narrative, shaping narrative, and so and so. I'll go on to give an example, sir. 1962 war. Our leadership at political and maybe military strategic leadership failed. Did our Indian soldiers lose? Wherever we fought, wherever we were told to fight, they fought, they won. They killed as many as possible, and when they were overwhelmed, they died on the place. It is only where the confusion of withdrawal, unplanned, disorderly orders flowed wrong from top, we possibly lost. And the Chinese knew that they can't sustain it, and they withdrew thereafter back to their respective lines. The narrative since then till now remains that Indian Army lost. I don't think so. Indian Army lost. The Indian Army soldiers won. But you look at book after book, writing after writing. Look at the movies. Look at the sad songs. Now some movies have started coming up. Lately, this movie on Major Shatan Singh is coming about of Zangla. Why did we have? Have you ever heard a song, a sad song by the Americans about their army and soldiers? Have you ever heard any positive, except for one or two songs, which is an offensive, aggressive, motivating song? I was Chinar Corps commander, so I reached out to 5, 6 producers of major producers and music directors of our country. They all said कि जनाब है नहीं, and they all promised कि बनाएंगे, but they have not been able to come. All our songs, चिट्ठी आती है, रो रहा है, you know, it looks as Indian Army is into sad song environment. Somewhere we don't get it. You see the clips of Rashtriya Rifle, which is being made internally by RR people. Short clips, it fills in you with motivation that, okay, there is Indian Army. I guess somewhere, I'm not talking of army only, I'm talking this whole.
No,
this
I'll give you an example. It's not only that. Just look, you spoke of the Chinese. Yeah, 62 we lost. Fine. What happened to 67? We hammered them. Okay.
No story.
What
Nobody
happened?
talks about it, sir.
Nobody talks. What happened in 87? Arunachal,
Yeah.
Sundarang. We just took over all the peaks, and till now the Chinese are crying. Right.
That's
What
it.
happened in Doklam? What happened in Doklam? What happened in Galwan? And we don't advertise it. I mean, I wouldn't say advertise it. We don't look. My view. I mean, let me. Sorry for disrupting your thought. See, my view is the biggest narrative is truth.
Correct.
Truth has got the power of tremendous narrative building, and here we have a whole lot of truth we are not telling. There's something
No
wrong with
story.
us.
No story. Sir, actually, about.
No story. Yeah,
No
go
story.
ahead, please. Sorry.
And, yeah. So the second is, sir, 1971, 93,000 prisoners of war. We treated them right. We looked after them. The Pakistanis have sold a narrative to the country that they have won. Look at the
They're now
narrative.
doing it.
Yeah, they're not, and everybody believes it. In any case, they have won now when they have come back to Bangladesh. So they will also destroy them in the process. That's fine with us. But the fact of the matter is that narrative shaping is important not only for the world, it is also for your population. Why should our population know that Indian Army was defeated? It is not Indian Army. The soldiers fought. There is a segregation, right? And that is need to be built upon. The perception time and again comes out that the Chinese are 8 feet tall. My God, sir, I've seen them. They are, they're good. Technology, everything is fine. That's all right. We will catch up. We started 20 years behind. I'm sure hamara bhi samay aayega. We need to keep on working at it. And
I have a different look. I have a different view on this. They might have technology, but that's about all. But battlefields don't need technology to be won.
Yes.
And every battlefield has a level of technology beyond which you don't need the technology.
And imagine, sir, they got paid. We know that Swami character and his these couple of gang, they will all write rubbish, right? But fear mongering, paid fear mongering, right? So somewhere we need to have also people to control those narratives, to contest, to put out, to tell the stories which are actually true, and it can be subtle. The last point which I want to say, sir, while everybody talks of narrative, it is not an easy job. It surely requires a structure, it requires a diffuse structure. It also requires to creation of content. It requires consistency. It requires creation of content and variety of forms. So, I had to struggle as a DGPI. Because, you're short of manpower. But in case you reach out to people, you can have small stories, you can have comic book stories, you can have, and there are children who want to read, but we don't have enough material out there for them to read. I grew up reading only on Western wars, Western books, Western heroes, Western leaders. मुझे सारी कहानियां पता है. But I have not read about Indian leaders, not even our independence leaders. वो सब कहानी है कि क्विट इंडिया मूवमेंट में महात्मा गांधी ने डंडा लेकर के सबको भगा दिया. But we have not read of the people who really fought or died. We don't shape that narrative of bravery because the Britishers not wanted us to come out and believe that we are war fighters. So there's a narrative that Indians are timid. Sir, if we're timid, we have been killing each other. You want to see the timidness? You go to Bangalore onto the roadside and you stop. Don't move on the red light the moment it switches to green. There'll be a road rage there. We are possibly one of the most violent people. We have been taken all across the world to fight against for the behalf of Britishers. We have died all over the continents, all continents outside. We are not. We are quite fighters, but हमारे दिमाग में डाल दिया है कि बहुत टिमिड है, हम तो बाहर नहीं जाते, हम तो बिल्कुल सर झुका के बात करते हैं. I don't think so that is any more true, sir. We need to talk the truth. We need to talk of history. We need to talk that how our people have gone out and fought in the foreign shores, in our shores, and that is how our narrative of our country has to be sold. We require a structure we don't have. I have said my piece, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Now tell me, how do you think this structure can come about? You see, after all, we have what we have. How do you change this whole story so that I've just given you an example. Well, we've had 5 conflicts with China, small, big, whichever way you look at it. Barring 62, we won the rest of the story, but we still haven't projected it as such. First and foremost, why? And second, what can we do about it?
So
Just take that as a case study.
Yeah, we are very timid to talk about our successes, sir. Like, when Ajay came to me, कि sir किताब लिखनी है, you must write an autobiography. I said, yeah, it doesn't behove us. So we don't talk. You look at the generals abroad. They do a tenure, they write a book, right? They publicize it, goes out. Somebody will make a movie about them. We don't. It requires not much. It just requires certain degree of belief, certain degree of freedom, and acceptance. It is required. The problem is that if we are paid organizations, when we are working for pay, we work only for जो हमको हुक्म मिलेगा. But इसके लिए हमें प्राइम मिनिस्टर से या गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया से हुक्म नहीं आएगा. So each organization for Army, Air Force, Navy needs to believe that it is your job. Similarly, IPS, IS, the bureaucracy, they are selling their respective organizations' narrative into the environment that we are doing X, Y, Z. Right? That is okay. But for a narrative shaping, to say that India is strong, is credible force, it can't be only done by Shankar. Right? It requires a lot of people to make movies, make stories, write comic books. It requires language. If I'm going to target a country outside, I require language skills of that particular country. We need to have historical context. You need historians or people who know the books to string out, flesh out stories in a manner it can be readable to a 10-year-old, to a 15-year-old, to a 20-year-old. So, when Americans had to sell that the US Army is great, they had commando comics targeted for young children. They had war books for middle segment. Then they had the leadership, this thing, for the higher segment. So I'm just talking of from the military context of point of view. Similar story can be run for the strategic community all across about a culture, about a people, about rich heritage. It just can't keep on about one leadership coming out and talking onto the stage, one or two people, and we forget. It has to be sold in multiple mediums. The problem is, sir, that we have to take the baggage of about 200, 300 years, which is lying on our shoulder, and get ahead of it. Because till the time people don't start believing that this was a baggage which is imposed upon and we need to start, and we can start afresh. Because the Gen Z, the Gen Alpha, and has to be targeted. Because you can't change the mind of the millennial. We need to tell the Gen Z, which is now coming onto the market, and Gen Alpha, which is now going to be about 15, 16, 17 years old, in the digital format, which is easy for him to understand. If it takes shots for them, we need to give shots to them. If they are looking at 5 minutes podcast, we need to give 5 minutes podcast. If they want to have a digitized robotic kind of a, those enemies to come out and talk to them, we need to have those stories to be told. It cannot be only religious. It has to be across the spectrum environment of our historical rich heritage. I was yesterday in Varanasi. The foreigners are teeming, and today I'm in Prayagraj, and I'm told they are with their mouth open. They are saying that the infrastructure here and the confluence of heritage, culture, and modernity in terms of digital management. The digital management in in Prayagraj is so much and being lauded by the foreigners here. They can't believe it that how millions are coming every day and they are being managed and everything is happening as if there is just no crowd. So, there are people who are believing in it, in us, but they are very small number. We need to sell the story firstly to our people and a story of a positivity. Everybody focuses on, couple of bad incidents in our country, and the entire thing gets zoomed into it. That is where the narrative is taken about us.
Yeah,
I'm
I
sorry,
think
sir.
so.
I hope I've answered.
No, yeah, I think so. And I think the time has come when we need to change our own narratives. Let me put it this way. We have to
Yes.
start believing. We have to start believing in ourselves that, look, we can do, yeah. Okay. Let's take a few questions because I see some interesting questions. I'm sure we'll.
I'll just answer this about structure, sir. Uh, I had recommended a structure to the at some point of time to, I don't know to tell whom. It
Yeah, it's
requires an amorphous structure. It requires a certain degree of setting a narrative shaping. It requires a certain direction to be given because I was sitting in that particular conference and everybody said कि ये मेरा काम नहीं है, right? And Jan Rawat had sent me for that conference, and I said अगर आपका नहीं है, उसका नहीं है, उसका नहीं है, इंडियन आर्मी का काम थोड़ी है।
किसका काम, इसका काम है ये,
So
कोई
every
तो करना
action which
पड़ेगा।
is done by Indian Army has to be taken forward in some form. So when Doklam or an incident happens, the Pakistani DAs all across the world will get a document talking, and they are talking. हमारे यहाँ पे तो they will give a call to you. सर मैं बात करूं नहीं करूं, जब आप बोल दो करो तो उसका जो बॉस है वहां पे वो कहता है कि यार how dare you, my orders will. So there has to be a sync. I'm sure, I'm not aware of today's environment. I'm talking about few years back. That is the challenge. We used to combine, give, but nobody is there to play it out. So, and everybody, अगर play out करना है, मेरे वाले ने हुक्म दिया तो मैं ही करूंगा. More is merrier. The foreign DAs here who are there, sir, in India, they want to listen from you. They should come so often that it should become a routine. You require manpower to do it. So allow that young officer, and they don't require a brigadier or major general to believe that lieutenant colonel or a colonel and equivalent rank in all over the government of India are good enough to do it. But trust, we need to trust. We need to allow them to talk. I guess.
Yeah, I think
that is
so.
how.
I think you made a very important point that one of the ways to convince people what we are is use these foreign DAs, expose them to various things, expose them to your way of life, expose them and let them interact freely, and you interact freely. Yeah, please.
Like
Go ahead.
in India, sir, the military man is at the bottom of the this thing, But in their country, like when the American president lands at the airport, the first man after the ambassador or the high commissioner or whoever, he shakes hand with the DA, right?
Yeah.
And he listens to them. Similarly, if you look at these Midwestern countries, the Gulf countries, or the Chinese and everyone, the DA has got the direct connect with the government. He doesn't have to go through the respective hierarchies. So, I'm not saying that we should have the same, but when I know that Yaman ka jo yahan baitha hua DA hai, uske paas bhi direct connect hai, I must use that leverage rather than trying to go through the same system of कि civilian should talk to civilian तब देखेंगे. तो वो civilian को कोई सुनता नहीं है. जो ambassadors यहाँ पे civilian है, उनको कोई नहीं सुनता. But military attaché के सब सुनते हैं. So we need to know where we have to press the finger.
Yeah. It's not only that how you want to communicate, whom you want to communicate, who's your target audience, किसको क्या बताने से क्या होगा, उसका असर क्या होगा. I mean, that's a very important thing, to this thing. Yeah, I think you put a lot of things in place today. We'll take a few questions. We'll see what they have. I mean, I think we'll get a lot of questions out of this. Right. Arunachal has asked for a couple of questions. I'll put them in context. General Pandey is very right. Indian Army should have a media cell that puts the perspective right. The second view he has is Indian Army should have a brave narrative like the IDF. So let's take on both these,
Yeah, look,
media cell and narrative.
I must tell you that, Arunachalji, I go out now, having retired. I interact with youth a lot. And actually, this is what I want to do, serve the nation by talking to the youth. It cost me money to travel from one end to another. But like I drove all the way to Banaras to speak to the students of IT. We should empower. They want to know about Army. They want to get pictures clicked by Army, by uniformed forces. They have great amount of respect. They may not want to join, but they want to shake hands. I think it is happening, but it's not happening enough. We need to do much, much more to reach out, because unfortunately, we feel ye mera kaam nahi hai, because my job is to war fight. But I guess to motivate our future generations, to tell them that you remain inspired, you tell them that you believe me, we are there to protect you. That shake hand is very, very often required. And I totally agree. While we have a media cell which is very, very well engaged, but I think they are short of hands. I think the chief, that time I had moved a proposal of information operation group. All the countries are having a similar structure, which is now coming and finally being rolled out. And I'm so glad that it will happen. And more people, it's not about more in numbers. It is the faith and the trust the civilian counterparts need to have, that we are not going to steal your show away. We'll only go and tell the people that you're in safe hands, which they are. But they need to be told time and again. And that is how what will happen is that once we are interacting with the civilian environment, their strengths will also come to us in the war fight. So in a border area, let's say in the Northeast, when our engagements are so good, then they will offer in a conflict, now we can fight with you. We have got so and so things. We got information. Because, I may be from North India going down to South India for this thing. But if our doors are open to each other, the local community will come out to always help you out in terms of local knowledge, which is also very important. And second is, when I say brave narrative, वो border ऐसी कहानी, हमारा बंदा मर ही रहा है और गिर रहा है 4 बार और उसको उठा करके लेके आ रहे हैं और रोना धोना बन रहा है. Somewhere we have to get over it. I can assure you our people are as big killers when it comes to operations. But in India, only sad song stories sell. Because possibly we make only that, Lata Mangeshkar kind of a thing. We need to get about it. And we need to make stories. I wish I could talk to some good producers and I can give them some ideas that how the story has to come. There are a couple of good movies which are now coming up. I'm not showing that you show a normal soldier as 10 feet tall and, he's thrashing 20 people around. But there are enough life stories existing today which can be taken forward to shape the brave narrative like IDF. Thank you.
Yeah, as a start, we have not considered, why have we not considered military channels on Doordarshan and Prasar Bharati?
Yeah, so it's a great thing. We are not considered military channel. Yeah, it's a good idea. There are a couple of programs which are done weekly. And luckily, my own battalion, there's a gentleman called Colonel Danveer Singh. He, a defense, something he runs and he comes twice a week or something in Hindi and English both. It's a good channel in which he talks about the progress and prowess of the military. Yes, I think it should be done more. And more than this, Akash, I will prefer that our PROs, most of them are actually remain unutilized. And that is the power of local language has not been exploited by us. for whatever reason, there are civilians who want to know. I was there for in the morning for that Aarti, sir. This Pujari, he's looking at my crew cut and he says, "आप फौजी हो." He doesn't know I'm a general or what. He doesn't care. उसको नहीं पता है. Just because he thinks I'm a fauji, he touches me. He says, "हम आपको बहुत respect करते हैं." My wife was there and he holds my. He's an old guy. He holds my hand and he climbs up. We are highly respected, but our outreach in terms of information is requires much more. And so I totally take your point, and I'll possibly reach out to ADGPI to talk about this facet. And a great suggestion. I'm grateful to you. Thank you.
And not only that, in fact, it's not only military channels on Doordarshan and Prasar Bharati. That is a formal way. But I think if you want to build narratives, today you have to build narratives on social media, YouTube. Like what we are doing, it's part of this game. You need to have more channels like say Gunnershot, which are adopted by the hierarchy, and you put it out. And when you talk with your experience, this is also some kind of narrative building which we are doing to instill faith. And in fact, the way I look at it, one of the reasons why I started focusing on China, because 50% of my podcasts are on China, is to ensure people understand that fellow is 2.5 feet tall, right?
Sure.
And he doesn't have everything which we think. We think he has, and he is using information warfare on you, and you are falling for it. But if this is backed, whatever we do, like you and I are doing at this point of time, is backed officially in some manner.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be overt. It doesn't have to be overt. It has to be covered. Or lose understanding. Look, can you put this out? There has to be orchestrated effort.
I will just add, sir.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Sorry. I just want to add. What sir has said is absolutely right. So, like this channel can be at the level of stat. The channel which has to target at women have to be different. The channel, so the stories are different for young. There are a couple of my videos which have run millions and millions of hits, and they continue to be used. Like I have gone to so many colleges, institutions, they play that video, and there is a whole. People may feel there is a narcissism or something at play, but I have not put it out. It is there. If the youth wants to hear, we must put out youth of Indian armed forces onto face.
Yeah.
You don't have to get a retired old guy like me to come and inspire youth. The youth will be much more inspired by youth rather than by youth. So you have to have separate segments for separate people and variety of different sorts. So it is today podcast and digital platforms are not one solution which meets all. You have to think imaginative to create content accordingly.
Yep.
So it's a great suggestion, I think, sir.
Yeah. While it is true our defense needs PR overall, it is disadvantageous to not do anything, assuming those who matter know our true strength. Is it advantageous to not do anything, assuming those who matter know our true strength? Others can keep focus on ranking, need for approval, and all that. So he's asking you virtually, can we just keep quiet?
Yeah, look, unfortunately, I am not firm believer of Narasimha Rao doctrine ki karo mat kuch mat karo sab theek hai. I am a person who breaks status quo, and I will only be harsh about it. Our PR system needs a major overhaul. When you have paid people working in the government institutions, they can hardly actually work the way it is required. You require youth to work. He may come and work only for 2 years with you, may take a certificate that he worked with the defense forces in the PR, and go out to create a great amount of portfolio for himself and work in outside world, because youth knows what is required in today's context and how can I hit the mind. They create content on me and send it to me. कि सर देखो आपके लिए बनाया चल रहा है. And you know they send it on the YouTube. And when I watch, I don't know कि ये कौन किसके बारे में बात कर रहा है. So firstly we need that archaic system कि आज यहाँ भर्ती हो गए और आप 60 साल तक नौकरी करोगे, तुम कुछ काम करो चाहे नहीं करो. In 5-6 major cities you will be sitting and only drawing pay and thereafter pension and look after your children. Defense is a word which is misnomer. And that is why when I talk, I use a word called military. Defense is very, very passive word to be used. We must use military, and everything related to military is a proactive action. Very rarely it is about wait and watch. Because if you're not moving, you will be always overwhelmed. And therefore, I think,
Yeah.
and regarding our true strength, I am again a believer what Sir said, truth. We must have 10% of truth. 90% I can build a story. And that is the game. So please understand, if Israelis were so master of technology, which they used to talk about, they have tunnels below them, not since now, for ages, and people are crossing. So every time somebody from the top used to tell me, and you've seen my media interviews, I've always said that our borders are porous, will remain porous. But everybody says, नहीं नहीं हम किसी को नहीं आने देंगे. Why? सच्चाई ये है कि बंदा आएगा. How can you stop? The best of the technology can't stop, and you will always find somebody to defeat the technology. So regarding our true strength, when you talk of some strength, you can build upon some more. And we need to keep the doubt in the mind कि ये सच बोल रहे हैं या नहीं बोल रहे. Height, they know our strength.
Okay. Next question. Why is there always the cruelty against Indian Army, Navy, and Air Force men shown by media? Why not the other way around and show the violent behavior of our defense, the need of the hour? Aggression.
Yeah, so
I wouldn't say violent behavior and aggression.
no.
Yeah.
If I'm please Sanjay, correct me if I'm wrong. What you mean say is that in the movies it is shown that कि हमारी पिटाई हो रही है, ऐसे हो गया, हार गए, we are bloodied, and we don't show our violent behavior of our defense. I hope, can you just send a thumbs up or something? Is this the question?
Yeah.
So okay. So
Yeah, tell me.
yeah.
Can I
So,
take the next question?
No, I'll just tell you. I think possibly it also goes with what sells in our country.
Yeah.
And the sadness, Rona Dona sells, dancing around trees sells, but this form of a possibly the realistic things doesn't sell. And for
No, it
far too
does
long,
sell.
people have,
It does sell. There are certain macro kind of movies which have sold, but only thing is it has to be put in the right context. I think.
correct. And we
Yeah.
need to make more
Obviously,
of it.
more of it. We have to have more of it. Okay.
And they have started
Uh,
coming up. And
yeah. Can we
I
stop?
think Sir Abhilash is saying that can we stop saying their mythology? I'm so sorry. I made it this statement for the larger context. I don't believe they are mythology. I believe they are real stories, right? So maybe sir we can strike it. और वो होता है ना पार्लियामेंट में बोलते हैं कि ये जो उसने बोला था उसको strike out कर दो. तो you can strike out if I have said mythology.
Yeah.
So I agree, Abhilash.
Several prominent politicians and media personnel have also been peddling these narratives. Why has the government failed to counter them? Is it not the failure of the government to communicate the facts? You've got a very large point in this.
But sir, what I will say is that why should I blame the government only? When as a society we are wanting to listen to these peddled narrative. In fact, today I saw a very beautiful clip in which that Thapar guy, क्या नाम है उसका sir? Karan Thapar, being fried of being, trying to peddle the narrative of the Pakistanis on his channel and his writings by Madhu Trehan. A very wonderful this thing. So the good part is, Vishwanathan, that we are living in a democracy which is truly a democracy, right? Unlike the Brits or Americans or the Chinese and other democracies, Ours is a democracy. You can drive on left or right. You can behave the way you want to behave. Uh, we should, but possibly the moment the government starts taking these actions, they'll also be peddled as autocratic and this thing. I'm not talking of this government. For God's sake, don't start thinking I'm from this side or that side. This has been the norm. So I guess, and second is they are too busy in so many other things. Our police, our government functionaries have got overwhelmed with other kind of work, and we are totally we don't have that kind of a strength or commitment to actually manage. So these narratives, I think the government of the day, and mind you, this government of the day was not in power some time back. So they may have also been peddling similar narratives. So it is possibly acceptable to them, and frankly, they are too so-called responsible. And I'm a retired man, not much to offer for them. But
No,
I
it's
guess
not that, but
they must take some action in case you. Sir, I took actions as a Chinarkot commander.
no. Let me put it this
There,
way.
there was
Let me
there
put
was
it this
a
way.
there was a case. I
Yeah,
just
go
want to
ahead.
share, sir. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead, go ahead.
There in Shopian, sir, there was an operation which happened in Masjid. Right, there was a battalion which was doing an operation, and in Shopian, after 20-25 years, first operation was happening in the town because the town was technically owned, kind of a thing, by other side, and people avoided operating. And Masjid mein panch mil gaye, and the call came to me. I just narrative again. I just told them, please announce and tell, and I started talking to the media and people and all that तभी वो जगह जो है प्रार्थना की नहीं रह गई है, पूजा की नहीं रह गई. It's no more religious structure. If they come out, it's fine. If they don't come out, we'll take them out. So operation happened. Eventually, there was some damage done to the religious structure. Not much, very little. But then again, the unit on the ground held on to the structure. They cleaned the entire thing, brought everything proper, and handed over to the population. And it is again they won the heart and mind of the people. But by the night, a very major media influencer with lakhs of followers put out a Quran Sharif with blood spots saying that this is what Indian Army has done. And I knew this will happen. So again, in this digital manner, you have to be prepared what is going to happen. So this team led by Rupesh Mehta sir was on the watch, and the moment this blob came up, they pounced, they searched the engine, they found it is of 2016 or 17 Assyria photograph which has come before also, and they started countering it. Right, we started countering, and our own people who believed in us, they started countering this famous person. And I reached out to the DGP Police and IGP Vijay Kumar, and I said, I'm lodging a formal complaint straight away. Please put out an FIR and put it onto the Twitter. It happened within seconds, and that person thereafter has left everything, and she has left the space of politics.
Yeah, I know. I remember that. I remember that.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that, sir.
Yeah, you can do it. I have no doubt.
You can do it. And well, I was a part of the government that time, right? So government also
no, government does. It's not that government doesn't do. Government does quite a bit. It's only that we're not doing enough. That's about all. Oh, incidentally, I must tell you, Rupesh was my Colonel GS when I was a GOC.
Sir, he was awesome. Yeah,
he was my Colonel GS.
One of the couple of I had very, very best officers with me.
Yeah. Any particular ideological or institutional reason that the ADGP doesn't play on the front foot like the ISPR? We can't stay mute spectators as the world believes them more over us regarding surgical strikes. It's not only regarding surgical strikes, I think overall. You can take a shot.
Look, again, I will go, let me bat on both sides. So, Shritik, I will rather believe, thank God we don't go on front foot like ISPR. Right? Today, over a period of time, people have started believing ISPR. A lot of, like today also, I was giving a talk to some esteemed audience, and everybody said, sir, why should not army have more power? I said, look, there's an army which has got too much of power there, and what is happening to the country? So at times, to be like ISPR, and they were on front foot when surgical strike had that Balakot happened, sir. They came out with wrong information time and again. But as their people believe in them, so maybe it happened. But the fact of the matter is that we need to do much more than what we are doing. And possibly we are not empowered, we are not also organized and structured in the ADGPI, which is now going to happen. And the chief had announced in this his media interaction press conference last week. And once it happens, I think it will be able to do the job, not the way ISPR does. We will not like to be playing lies game. We like to play the game of truth. We may build over truth to sell the truth. This is mine. I'm not ADGPI or I'm not in the service. But if I have to advise, I'll advise this. सच तो होना चाहिए. Because झूठ की जो जिंदगी है वो बहुत कम होती है. Right?
Yeah. This is Mr. Modi rolled out new policies to encourage animated cartoon productions. We should put that to work. If we ever seen Japanese anime, you know that what magic we can do at home and with narrative building. So,
Sir, what a great recommendation. I think I just spoke about anime in my references that we need to. So animes are required. If you tell today's children a cartoon or a different system, it will fail. So not only anime, it has to have different segment. And I can't tell, or the ADGPI cannot tell, or a colonel or a joint secretary cannot tell that what is required by each segment. You have to look at that segment to represent in your team for those 1 or 2, 3 years to actually produce the thing which is required by the team. And in this technology evolution manner, the things are changing so fast. If you're not ahead of the curve to start looking at multiple, when Japanese anime came, there were a number of other things were coming out. So you have to actually produce those number of things, out of which one something like Japanese anime will have to come. So, but you can't wait that Japanese anime का succeed होगा तो मैं उसको करूंगा, because by the time that succeeds, something new is coming up. So the South Korean band, all Indian girls, the girls world over, want to go to South Korea because of that one silly band which is there. Is an awesome band. Nothing, no great shake. Yeah, but the fact is that they are all depressed. They are all into major challenges. But if our youth wants that, we need to create something of that nature for them to also believe that. So maybe that band could have been the way to create a band, or that band to sell out the narrative of our country, of our army, of our culture.
Yeah, I think we have come to almost we've covered the whole lot, whatever we had to cover, wanted to cover. I must thank you for this wonderful narration. Would you like to talk about the book for a couple of minutes before we?
I think I got consumed. I forgot about the book, sir.
No, that's okay.
Thank you, sir. It is very strange, sir, that Ajay Rana, who's written 28 books, has taken me as a muse, because Indian army officers, and not Indian army, I think Indians by themselves don't want to talk about their achievements. We may boast amongst ourselves, and we may be called narcissistic and stuff like this. But Kiran Bedi onwards, for last 2.5 years, there were many people who wanted me to write autobiography, which because of large number of operation tenures which I have done, not only in valley but in plains, in jungles, in again opposite Chinese and Siachen Glacier in the work, and somehow I was not able to write. So I wrote an article on Siachen Glacier, Ultimate Test of Command. In that also, I have not written about my experiences. I have written about others' experiences to talk about them. So finally, number of people approached me once I retired to write a book and stuff like this. Then they came to write about biography. Then eventually Ajay came to me and he sat in my house, and he's written 28. He's quite passionate. I've never served much with him. Served only once, bought a ticket back for 3 months with him. And he was in a different branch. And eventually he was able to swing, and my wife tells him कि इसमें क्या लिखना है इनके बारे के अंदर. So Ajay was very committed. He said कि मैम आपको नहीं पता है कि जवान क्या बात करते हैं इनके बारे में. What does youth want? How much followership he has got in youth? And I must tell you, sir, instantly that there's a fan page which has got much more number of follower than what I have got on my own Instagram or Twitter handle. So he said that, sir, I will write if you allow me. So I said, okay, you can write, but I will not give any comments. So this book, sir, I have not given any statements. I have not signed any contract. He has not taken money from the publisher or wherever he's publishing from. I don't know the story. I have not seen the story. But he came to me in mid-November, and he has surprised me only day before yesterday when he actually put it out on the Twitter himself without even telling me. And I was driving to Banaras that time. Somewhere I stopped and I saw it on the Twitter, and then I replied to back that, what have you done? How you have done so fast? He says, sir, you just don't know how much material I have got. I can't put everything. I got material for 2 books about you. So thanks to Ajay. And the only thing he said, as you have not signed anything, sir, you'll have to buy your own book. And if you
that's
want me
very.
to sign it for you. So, but I'm okay, sir. And as long as it serves the purpose to inspire youth, he said it's meant for you.
Yeah.
And is only meant for young officers, young men. Is not meant for a senior leaders. So I guess it's fine.
Yeah, that's fine. What I tell everyone is sometime 10-15 days down the line, General Pandey and Colonel Raina will come on Ghana Short, and they're going to talk about this book. It's a unique kind of a book, so we must learn about it. Like
Sir,
others
that you have to
also.
ask Ajay. Sir, you have to convince
Yeah,
him.
we'll do
He's
that.
your
We'll do.
time,
No.
party
Have a
time.
word with them. Have a word with them, and I'm sure things can be done. That's one. The second thing is tomorrow we're going to have in the evening open hour, and I'm going to discuss a few important things like Gaza ceasefire, TikTok ban, um, the space docking experiment, which is very important. The Chinese have commented on it, and it's interesting to see what the Chinese have spoken and things like that, right? So and more. There are more, a lot of things, small things which have happened. I'll cover them. Maybe I'll cover about 5-6 topics. It might be a longest show. Do join in. And those of you who like this podcast, uh, press the like button and also consider subscribing to Ghana Short, right? And I would like more of you to come and also join as members. With this, General Pandey, thanks a lot. I think you covered the business of narratives very well, and I look forward to the discussion of your book shortly. And thanks to all the readers. I mean, thanks to all the viewers who have joined me today evening. Thank you. Good evening and Jai Hind. Jai Hind.
Sir, I just want to add, sir.
Yeah, please.
The comments which come in the Gunner shot, and I have not been reading comments before. It is the first time I started reading comments with the Gunner shot when I gave your first this thing. I got a large number of podcasts, but they are the most incisive. And I
Yeah.
must tell you, sir, I learn more than what I have given
From
from
yeah, I
those
agree
comments
with
of
you.
yours. They're very
Yeah,
good, sir.
yeah, because my viewership is not great. I know that, but the people who view are people with brains, and right, that's the
Right,
thing, and that's a compliment to all the viewers. And in fact, there's
right.
one Pakistani viewer who said, why is your viewership low?" You see, YouTube is a mela. So people will go where there's more action and pataka, ye, wo, and all that. Here we talk a lot of sense, and people with sense do watch it, right? Okay. With this, I think we'll close down for the evening. You have to get going.
Yeah, sir.
Great. Good evening and Jai Hind to all of you, and thank you once again, Pandey.